skies, and on every occasion that you do, I don't smile.
Welcome to Sensible Secondhand Classics, the show where we look at nostalgic modern classics that you can buy for between £1,000 and £5,000. This is a 1985 Nissan Laurel C31 2.4 automatic, and it's very rare and it's very nice. So the C31 Nissan Laurel, or Datsun Laurel, both names were used over here, was launched in about 1981. The market span of this car was very short. It only lasted in production until 1984. This car was registered in late 1985. We think that was some considerable time after production ended. For our market, we believe it's very hard to find information about it, but we believe there was just one engine, which is this 2.4 straight six, developing 113 horsepower, known as the L24 engine. It was similar to the type of engine that was used in the Datsun 240Z. For the European market, Nissan did also make a 2-litre version of this car that generated about 95 horsepower. Interesting driving a straight six, actually. There were also some diesels in other parts of the world, but as usual, we don't talk about diesels on this channel. The experience of driving a really rare car like this is amazing. This automatic gearbox doesn't really seem to have many ratios in it, and I think I'm still like second gear at 50 miles an hour, which isn't my favourite really. It's quite kind of sort of smooth though, really. It's easy enough to drive. It's got this very light power steering in it, although there is absolutely no road feel at all. Nothing at all. It's like maybe an American car would be or something. I don't really know why Nissan or Datsun, this car has both badges on it, decided that they needed both this and a 280C or later a 300C on the market at the same time. They seem to fulfil a very similar purpose, but I don't know. They marketed the Cherry and the Sunny at the same time, so, you know, what do I know? Same deal with the Bluebird and the Stanza. But when noise is noticeable in this car, it's not really a problem as such, but it does make you think. I'm very grateful to look at this car by Chris, who's many other classics you've probably seen on the channel already. I am using a different telephone today. I'm using my lady wife's one because I left mine somewhere in Yorkshire, so yeah, so I'll drive around the northeast today is on a different type of phone. I'm just quite enjoying it. It's quite pleasant, really. The thing about the Datsun or Nissan Laurel is that it existed at a really strange time for the Nissan range in Europe. It was still sort of sometimes badging the cars as Datsuns, and this does have a Datsun badge still on it for really no reason, because the front says Nissan and the back also says Nissan. It's a Nissan Laurel, but there is a Datsun badge still on it, and there really isn't a reason for that to be there at all. By 1985, when this car was registered, I don't think any other cars in the range were badged as Datsun. I think this is the last one, and the reason for that is probably because this car was, we believe, made in 1984. We don't think it was actually made in 1985, despite the fact this is a late 85 registration. The 280C and the 300C were on the market at the same time as this car. The 300C replacing the 280C in 84. So the reason for this car's existence, and they're very similar in size actually, this and the 280C, is quite perplexing. This used in our market, I think, only this 2.4 litre engine generating 113 horsepower. We actually had to look up the power output for this because there's so little information about these. I know that in Europe, elsewhere, there were 2 litre versions available. That was about 95 horsepower. But looking at a 1983 brochure for this, there looks like there's only one model available, and it's this, the 2.4. It's just called the Laurel 2.4, or on the V5 it's called a 2400 automatic. There were, I think, SGX and SGL trim levels as well at some point, but by the time this car was made, probably 1984, for our market anyway, there was just one trim level called the 2.4. Very well equipped though, it's got all kinds of things in it. Got automatic, I think that's automatic, sort of locking feature. Could even be power shot windows. It's not quite as big in here as something like a Ford Granada. The headroom's a bit of a problem actually. The reason I'm allowed to sort of sit here like this is because the sunroof's open. If the sunroof closes, I'm going to have to somehow adjust this seat down a bit. We don't really know what this is, this Harry Moss thing. I don't know what that is. If anybody knows, then feel free to put it in the comment section below. Air conditioning, I think, was an option in this car. This doesn't have it. You can see a blanking plate there. But very typical Japanese controls of the era. And just like in the Stanzas, which were made about the same time, a separate cassette deck for what is, I think, just an AM radio. Look at all these warning lights. Now, one thing we have worked out from the brochure is that this is a different type of instrument cluster from the earlier cars. Again, I don't know particularly why, but they did change it at some point during production. There is the control for the electric aerial, which is remarkable. The seat fabric is very soft, the seats are very comfortable. There's no seatbelt height adjustment or anything. Maybe they didn't think you needed it. Dashboard, it's nice and squidgy, apart from this bit. That it's nice and squidgy. If I just pull the door shut a little bit. Chrome interior door handles, power locks, little warning reflector for the doors being open, and down there, electric mirrors. One thing I do like about this car very much is the fact we've actually got a variable intermittent wipe here, and it says between, if the autofocus works properly, 4 and 12 seconds. I think that's some kind of headlamp wiper control. Ooh, headlamp wiper action. Yes, we do like a bit of headlamp wiper action, viewers. Conventional handbrake, and I believe this is a Jatco 3-speed automatic gearbox. You can see sort of here the laurel wreath, which sort of says this is a bit of a winner, this car. Right, let's get in the back, shall we? Right, come along, autofocus, behave yourself today. One thing I would say, despite all these luxury features in here, there's not as much space as I thought there might be in here. Certainly compared with the Mark II Granada, it feels a little bit cramped and my knees are right up in the air. I mean, this car's somewhere in size between a Cortina and a Granada, and probably the interior makes you think that it's more of a Cortina size. Maybe there was a reason why they marketed the 280C at the same time as this. Seat fabric is rather nice. It's very, very typical of the period. Ooh, it's comfy. It does feel a bit like travelling in a nice taxi. But of course the Cedrics were the models that Nissan used in Japan for the taxis at the time. And the 280C was a variant of the Cedric. Little storage box there. Ashtray, of course. The interior is worn very well, considering this car is well over 35 years old. And the headliner is, I don't know what this is made of, really. It's sort of, it's not velvet. It's a bit harder wearing than that. The headroom's actually okay. It's just this knee room which isn't great. Right, let's take a look in the boot. Let's use the remote release because we can. Yeah, Nissan and Datsun. Spare wheels actually on this side, so we've got quite a deep floor, but a very high loading sill. But that's quite common with a lot of these cars. I know both the Granada and Cortina, since say 82, would have had quite a high sill. There's the jack just there, and previous owners very kindly left Chris some parts and a service manual. And definitely see it's a C31 series. I think the rear lights on this one are slightly different from the earlier ones as well. And if you're wondering, we think this colour is actually original. It does say in some places that the car should be silver, but this looks like a nice period combination with the brown and the gold. Certainly very, very, very early 80s. So here is the 6-cylinder 2.4 litre engine, known as the L24. From the brochure from 1983, we believe this generates 113 horsepower, although I know this engine actually generated up to about 128 horsepower in some other applications. You can see here that it's got all the different types, an L20, 28, L20 mechanical, L20 automatic, L24 mechanical, L24 automatic. This is an L24 automatic. So those are different engines you could get with it. As far as I know, this was the only engine you could get on the UK market, this 2.4 litre, although, as I've said, the 2 litre was sold elsewhere in Europe, and in Japan there were loads of other engines you could get as well. The 280C used the L28 engine, that was an enlarged version of this. I think they probably marketed sort of one with one engine, one with the other to differentiate them a bit. And yes, viewers, we do have headlamp wipers. We might get a bit of headlamp wiper action in a bit, if you're very lucky. Right, I'd like to go for a drive though. I think that would be nice. So it looks like, because I came this way earlier on, there's been a kind of funny thing happening up the road. So we're going to have to draw our little test drive to a bit of a premature end in this Laurel. I just noticed the clock's working, which is quite nice. Yes, it's not the thing that necessarily wants to sort of drive around in traffic in, but I kind of quite like it. It's sort of growing on me. I suppose I better go and give this car back to Chris once I've got through this traffic and draw some conclusions about this rare early 1980s Datsun. So viewers, the C31 Nissan Laurel is just a car that you should consider with your budget for a sensible classic of between £1,000 and £5,000. Well, yes, it's funny. You can actually buy these still, and within budget. This car was owned by the lady who actually supplied the car for the review on the Hubnut channel in 2018, just in case you're wondering. It's not the same car, it is slightly different, but it is owned by the same lady. She presumably now has 2 Laurels as opposed to 3. It's a strange experience. It feels very sort of American, with this incredibly light steering with no feedback, and just this sort of very formal styling and formal interior, but very Japanese with these kind of sort of interesting fabric seats and you know, all these sort of gizmos and things you find on the interior. It's a fascinating car. Why it even exists, I don't particularly know, but I'm pleased it does. And obviously Chris is the man for the job to look after this for years to come. I think there were, if I've already mentioned it, other trim levels available. I think SGL and SGX trim levels were available in this country, but this is just a 2.4 auto. Now that's what it's called. So don't tell me in the comment section that I missed something, because I have checked on the V5 and that's what it says. Anyway, thank you ever so much indeed for watching this episode of Sensible Secondhand Classics. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more of the same. So like this video and to leave a comment below. Yes, it really does help if you switch on notifications as well to be informed of new uploads. I'd really appreciate it if you could do that. Thank you.